action committees of the NAACP that are spread around all over this state and communities. How could the churches with vans, how could OFA for that matter, in its organizational structure not have put another African American member of the community on the ballot to give us an opportunity to at least put in parity the members of the Council of State and to put in place another young man who had run on a statewide level for a statewide office and who would be in a position to step up and talk about that and the significance of it. You remember Ken Lewis ran for Senate, and as a result of being a young man running for the Senate, Ken was and is and continues to be in a position to provide leadership in the state. He's providing great leadership through OFA even now in the fundraising effort. And he's a young man in a position to speak out for the community with plenty of time still to go in his life and his political life to run for governor or senator or president for that matter. Those things are important, and having those standings are important. And I've been walking around shaking my head wanting to know how it was that as significant and important as this was to the community let itself down. Really, it's not about whether Marlowe was let down. I'm sure he feels let down, but the community let itself down, and we just can't do that.
How important is it for the community to know to get involved in what's going on in our political field, and what type of impact will it bring if we don't get involved? More involved?
Well, I can give you some very concrete and real examples. If the community had been involved in the 2010 election, then the Democrats would have controlled the House. The chief budget writer for the Democrats, the lead #1 man budget writer for the Democrats on that committee, on the budget writing committee, was Mickey Michaud. H.M. Mickey Michaud, for whom the education building at North Carolina Central is named, who has is the longest serving Democrat in the House, and who proudly identifies himself as African American, and who wears the North Carolina Central Eagle on his lapel every day. Not the legislative pen, but the North Carolina Central Eagle.
Correct. On
his pen, which means that when Mickey Michaud sits down to do the budget, he is looking at making sure that HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, are getting their fair share of the pie and the treatment, which translates into a better education for folks within the community. Which means that, unlike what the Republicans did, that he's looking after Medicaid and Medicare, programs that benefit folks who are economically challenged in the community as well as in other places across the state. Well, the Republicans came in and they cut $340 million out of Medicaid, which means that because those programs are matched $2 and $3 for one by the feds, they really cut out $1 billion.
Sure.
That's $1 billion in medical care services, a notable and significant portion of which were coming for the community. But not just that. The Republicans cut out 36,000 jobs. They cut out teacher positions, teacher aides positions, and they cut out private sector jobs. When the state firing took place, tell me who you think bore the burden disproportionately. I think your laughter tells me you already know. It's African American men and women bore the burden disproportionately, which means that there's a direct link back into the community for the fact that H.M. Mickey Michaud was not the budget writer, and he wasn't the budget writer because the community didn't come out strongly enough to put Democrats in office. And so it then flows from there to the colleges and universities. It flows to health care benefits in the community. It flows to jobs, teaching jobs, and other state jobs in the community, but it doesn't just stop there. It also flows heavily into the private sector because those $1 billion in health care funds were being paid to health care providers.
Yeah.
All right, well, one of the jobs that many folks within the community have is in the healthcare field, and always has been. It's a good work, it is honorable work, it requires training and experience and an ability to empathize with people and a willingness to help folks, things that are values the community holds very strongly. And so there's $1 billion less healthcare money to hire people, many of whom are in the community, which helps explain why the unemployment in the community is double what it is in the rest of the state. Well, it all goes back to the vote. And there were people going around saying, well, I didn't get what I thought I was going to get. I didn't get as much benefit as what I thought I was going to get. And since I didn't get it, I wasn't going to go vote. Okay, well, fine. You didn't get more, so you didn't go vote. So you know what you're going to get for not voting? You're going to get screwed, correct, which is exactly what happened. The community is getting financially screwed because folks in the community didn't step up and go vote. The district I have represented is a part of my district is Caswell County, which is 55%, it's 45% African American by population, but it's 55% African American by vote. And I have always enjoyed writing an article each week called Bill Seat that tells everybody in my district the legislation I was working on and helping pass that week. And usually I pick 3 or 4 topics. And every week, at least one, sometimes 2 of those topics talked about benefits for the community, right up to the point where the Republicans took over. And when the Republicans took over, I could not find a single thing to write about for the community on a single week because there wasn't one. Now this time around, they actually came up with one item, and it was eugenics legislation. You remember what eugenics was. It was this deal where the state would go and sterilize people because they were mentally deficient. Correct. And of course, guess who bore the burden of that one again? Well, it was the community. And so for years, Larry Womble had been working on a eugenics bill, Representative Larry Womble, which would provide some compensation to folks who had been sterilized and shouldn't have been. It was an awful thing that they were doing. And so this time around, the Republicans came to Larry and to others and said, we're going to help you out. We're going to get this passed. And we're going to give $50,000 apiece to the folks who got sterilized because it was a bad and wrong thing to do, and we want to make it right. And Larry said, oh, thank heavens, after all these years of working on it, finally I'm going to succeed. And he got it passed out of the House. And you know what the Republicans did when they got to the budget?
What's that?
Screwed the community again. They took it out. So they passed the eugenics bill, and then they turned around and took it out of the budget so it couldn't be funded. So on the one hand, they came to folks in the community and said, we're Republicans and we're still going to help you. We're going to make things better. And then the moment the Republicans, some of the folks were saying, okay, well, we'll help you back and we'll kind of work with you and you're going to be okay with us. And the moment that happened, they screwed them again. And they took it away and they didn't give them anything. You can't trust that crowd. You just can't. And so the answer to and I could go on. If you wanted me to go on, I could keep right on churning. The answer to the question is, what difference does the vote make? It makes a huge difference. It makes it in your pocketbook. It makes it in your jobs. It makes it in other people in the community who have jobs. It makes it in needs-based scholarships for the community. It makes it in teacher positions, healthcare positions. It makes a huge benefit in helping folks who are economically challenged. I mean, we can just keep going with it. Correct. And they're all absolute concrete examples of what this Republican crowd has done once they got control.
We're running short on time. Tell us a little bit about the voter ID. The governor vetoed. Was overridden.
I think the voter ID is the only bill that hasn't been overridden. Everything else was overridden.
Okay.
The voter ID, I think, is the only one still standing, and the whole idea behind the voter ID is to try to keep the African American community home, because the African American community is 38% of the Democratic base. The African American community has great voice, great power, great political power within the Democratic Party. And what the Republicans are trying to do is to keep African Americans and older Americans home and keep them from voting. And what they were claiming is there was voter fraud, and the truth of the matter is I think they found 4 cases of voter fraud nationwide I mean, true voter fraud nationwide. It's just a problem that doesn't exist. And so the idea was to try to suppress the vote, and the reason to suppress the vote is so that they can go run their radical right social agenda, and they can continue to do the kind of bad things they've been doing. Simple as that.
Why should we, as far as these bills, what do you think about them? The bills as far as the Justice Act, the fracking, the budget, what do you feel about them?
I feel like it's just awful. I feel like that what matters to me is people. Just like the folks in the community who are reaching out in healthcare because people matter to them and because it's an opportunity to both make a living in something that's interesting and technical but also allows folks to empathize and help other people. And when you look at bills like fracking and like the other agenda of the Republicans, what it appears to me they've done is their big contributors have come in and said, here's the money, only it's not here, it's here, is the money we're going to put into your party. And what they've come back and said, and I'm not saying there's a direct link and I'm not saying anybody's done anything illegal, but what it looks to me like, when you look at the legislation, it looks like a legislative agenda driven by a business big money agenda, not by a people agenda. It's an agenda based on how can you help somebody who owns a business put more in their pocket. And if this means that people get hurt or have their rights taken away or have their right to control their own property or avoid other people trespassing on their property, well, just too bad. Because we're going to make money for the big folks. We're going to make sure the insurance companies got more money. We're going to make sure the oil companies have more money. And if you get hurt in the process, too bad, that's just the way it is. We're going to run business. and I just think it's awful. I do.
Correct.
And that's the way they've treated racial justice. It's the way they've done voter ID. The fracking bill, I mean, if we're running short on time, we don't need to get into fracking yet, but we can get into fracking and what it's doing to people's water and wells and what it's doing to their trespass rights and what this crowd is doing. And I don't like what they're doing, and I don't like it not because their label is Republican. I got some good Republican friends, but I don't like it because it's not about helping people. It's not about making folks' lives better. They're out hurting education. They even tried to pass a bill that would allow a corporation to decide to give part of its money, its tax money, to private schools. Not public schools, private schools. And private schools it selected, and take that money out of the general fund and out of the general education budget and put it in some private school that corporation was funding, all as part of what appears to be an agenda to take apart and dismantle public education.
If the community wanted to get some more information from Representative Bill Faison, how would they get in contact with you?
Go to billfaison.com. Let me know what you need. We'll try and provide it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got Representative Bill Faison, and hopefully he'll come back and give us some more information about what's going on in the politics. Thank you, Mr. Faison.
Glad to do it, Paul.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you be encouraged. Thank you.